Okay, I'm getting this message.
Yeah, I also got. And could you please record session, Simon, from your side?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you please record? Yes.
Okay, it looks like we are back on track, and I think everyone can hear me. Yeah, that should be fine. Super. We can start this up again. Thanks for joining everyone who is either on this side, which is our Zoom sessions.
Simon, we are getting echo.
Is it an echo from my side, Renuka? No.
Someone has the YouTube page open.
Okay. Yeah, I think the one on the Zoom can't, but maybe the
Renuka, you have it open on a tab.
Maybe Renuka.
You probably have it open.
So take two, yeah. So let's take two again. Thanks again for joining everyone on a Saturday afternoon. And we have Pooja here, and a Flutter GDE, Flutter expert, Flutter everything, I would say. And again, really appreciate her being a mentor, part of the mentorship for you guys. So let's see what Pooja has to say about interviews. And we took you to the journey of coding, and now the next step is basically being being part of the community and being there for if you're looking for a job, for what you should be doing, etc. So Pooja, over to you.
Hi everyone. So I'm just going to be sharing my screen and then let you know how we are going to be doing this today's talk or session or workshop or whatever you want to call it. So I am going to be sharing my screen. Okay, let's see. Are you able to see?
Yep. Yes, Pooja. Stand out.
Okay. All right. So basically, hi, I'm Pooja Bhaumik, and I am a Google developer expert for Flutter. I'm also a co-founder for Flutter Hiring Network, which is a community that me and a few of my friends have started, like basically trying to match companies and candidates in the Flutter hiring market. We ran 2 batches of candidates and got them hired in some of them in India. Currently we are on a pause, but because of that exercise, we got to know a lot of other things about the hiring market. What are the things that companies really require? What are the things that they don't? What are the things that the candidates need to work on, and what basically they lack in, where they do not focus in their interviews. Other than that, I'm also like the senior engineer in Unicards, and previously I have been part of the hiring panel in the the companies. So I have interviewed people for companies as well. So that kind of gives me a little idea of what the market is like, or what kind of things really helps. So in this kind of session, I just want to make sure that all your answers, or sorry, all your questions are answered regarding interviews and resumes and about the hiring market in a way. So I will be going through like few of the things that we should know, or like we should like take care of. However, if you have questions in between the content, let's not pretend that this is a talk. Let's pretend that this is an interactive session. So if you have questions and you do not want the context to be lost, so you can definitely have it added to the chat here, or I guess there is YouTube live as well happening. So I can look into it and I can answer it on spot without losing the context at that point of time. So let's have it as interactive as possible, and let's start. So we have a question already, but let me just start first. All right. So First of all, it's the week 8. So I think congratulations to everyone who has been through all these weeks of building applications where you've learned about animations, testing, state management, so many more. And this is the 8th week where we basically apply all of that and start applying for jobs and internships and whatever roles that you want to apply for in Flutter. So congratulations if you have, passed all these weeks and are actually in week 8. So let's just talk about what exactly will be, the kind of agenda in a way. So there are topics and concepts that we kind of should know about, or we must know about if you're applying for an internship, if you're applying for a junior early career role, or if you're applying for a senior role. So I'm going to basically go through all of that. And even in between all of that, there are things that help you stand out in those application for those roles, because there are X number of things that you should do for getting an internship, but you can do Y things so that you stand out in the pool of applications that the companies get. So I will be talking about those as well. And of course, Q&A, which is going to be an ongoing Q&A around the entire session. And of course, at the end of this talk or whatever it is. So let's begin. So let's talk about if there are any, people who are looking for internships. Are there any people in Zoom right now who are looking for internships right now in Flutter? I don't know if I can see the YouTube live chat or not, because that's, but yeah. If you are looking for an internship in Flutter, there are a few things that because when we were running the Flutter hiring network, we had too many basically students, because it was mostly focused in India, and in India there are huge number of engineering students, right? So basically everyone was looking for an internship. And we interviewed a lot of people, mock interviewed a lot of people. And these are the kind of things that I think I figured out that it's either missing or needs more focus on. The first thing is basically a knowledge of object-oriented programming. And it's not just the bookish knowledge, what is inheritance, and you can write a definition of it. It is about the application knowledge as well, because that's the one thing that as a student you're expected to know for sure. If you're definitely coming from an engineering degree, then definitely you have to know this. And what we realized during all the mock interviews is that people know what abstract classes are, people know what interfaces are, but they cannot apply it at all. They either interchange the meanings of it, or they don't know exactly at what situation they should be applying it, or even just writing an example of it. Forget what situation, maybe that comes from experience. However, just writing an example of an abstract class actually was very hard for some of the students, but they could define it in words, which is what is very bookish knowledge that came out of it. So understanding object-oriented programming is a must, because anyway, Dart is kind of an object-oriented programming language, so you definitely need to know that. But now the question would come, do you need to know Dart or any other OOP language? Now, if you're coming from an engineering degree, there is a possibility that you might be knowing some other OOP language, because Dart is not really part of the curriculum in a lot of colleges right now. So maybe you know Java or Python or something like that. However, if you're applying for a Flutter internship, there are companies that they say that it's okay if Dart is not what your your preferred languages, because they're happy to teach you in a way. So they will give you the time to learn Dart if you are learning, or if you know some other languages already. So it's okay for some companies if it's not Dart to begin with. However, there are smaller startups where they do not have the time to, always give you that, the time to learn a new language, and then also Flutter, and then also learn about, professional stuff and all the kind of thing. So maybe it depends on like the size of the startup or how urgent they need someone. In some cases, some companies hire interns only because they have lesser budget also, and they just want to like, make sure that they can build like a prototype or something like that. So at that point of time, they will not really wait for you to learn Dart and Flutter at that point of time, right? So at that point, like they are like, okay, I need someone who already has some kind of project experience in Flutter and Dart, so I can hire as an intern. It's a student, that's why it is an intern. So that is the it depends on the startup or company that you're applying for. But maybe bigger companies, they are okay for you to like, learn it on the job. So then comes that the fact that the moment if you started learning basic programming yesterday, maybe today is not the right time to start applying for jobs or like internships, because of course maybe at some way you might get hired. However, like I feel like as a student you will have a lot of time, and you will be able to work on your skills in while you do not have a job to or an internship to worry about. So if you're just starting out, work on the basic foundations of programming, which could be like the OOP concepts, where like it's classes and objects, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation, these kind of things, not in like the definition, however understand how you can apply it without really just like know how you can like even have some kind of idea in your head, and like try to just build a Dart application, just a Dart application, no UI kind of a thing, and that will force you to actually apply these kind of concepts. So this can be a takeaway that, okay, if you're working on Dart like the first time and all that, try to build an application, which it could be like, I don't know, attendance management system kind of thing, or something that you use every day, so that it forces you to learn these concepts and not just the definitions of it, which is what exams make us do, that they force us to learn the definitions, but application and applying it to a app that we maybe want to use every day will force us to learn the concepts. So that's a few of the things. Then comes, of course, if you're applying for an internship in Flutter, they will expect you to know Flutter. And again, it depends on the company. There's some company that are okay with you doing it on the job. However, like if you want to stand out, of course, you would want to like know the framework, right? So one thing to start with is basically you need to know how to translate designs into code. Now, this is the most common way that people learn Flutter. It's just that, doing designs is so much fun. Like basically building UI in Flutter is so much fun that people love to like replicate or, do mock of their favorite apps, which is like, could be Instagram, it could be like whatever, Facebook, whatever it is, or Meta. So any apps that you really love and use every day, think of like, building it in Flutter, just the UI, not much logic, just the transition between one screen to another. Just that's it. That's how they start. People even did like UI challenges. At least I remember in 2018, 2019, there were so many UI challenges happening. And even Flutter has their own annual challenges where they ask you to like, build some crazy UI and all that. It's just always so fun to do it. So always start with that, because you will also have fun while you're learning something, right? Now, there are people who do not like UI much. I do not know if front end is for you then, but like definitely if you love building animations, if you love building UI, I think doing those UI challenges is going to be fun. And even, of course, go to Dribble or like Behance and something like that, and choose any of like the famous crazy UI that is there once you're very confident, and try to just replicate them. Just the satisfaction at the end of it is like just so much fun. I think that is where you just force yourself to learn more and more. And I think a lot of people transition into like animation masters at the end of these exercises, where there's so much love doing UI and animations that they realize that that is their forte, that is what brings or makes them unique to other developers there. So while you do these exercises, you will figure out what your expert category is. Is it animations in UI? Is it architecture? Is it cleaner code? Whatever it is, all these exercises will let you know once you do practice all these stuff. So yeah, these are some of the things. And of course, like when you do all these amazing stuff, you want to showcase, because a resume is not just the only thing that you can give to your recruiters for like showing off your work. GitHub has to be part of it. Like you have to like start uploading your amazing stuff on GitHub, be it UI projects or like even actually full-fledged apps that you've built. Open source everything, because at this point I don't think you like it should really matter to you to build like private apps in a way, if you're having like the next $1 million idea, then that's a different thing. However, definitely like keep on open sourcing everything that you build, and have like the first top 6 projects that you for sure want to like impress your recruiters with. So I have seen people who come they're applying and they have they have a GitHub profile, but it's completely empty. And the reason that they have given is that most of the projects that they've built are like for clients, which is okay. Like, of course, so you can't like open source your client projects, don't do that. However, you have to have some of your own projects, right? Like, don't you like enjoy development enough to like build your own side projects? So you have to have some, maybe not 6 or 8 or 10, but some like 2 at least that you can showcase, like have that time out to build a side project or a UI challenge, something like that. So that your GitHub profile is not so empty. I have some questions here. Should we add licenses to public repos? I never had to, so I don't know, like for like a UI challenge or like a side project which is not a you're not actually deploying it as such or something like that. Like I do not like just the regular licenses, I think works. Nobody really like, this is not something that you need to worry about in your like side projects which you're not like building for clients, or like your out some of the projects that other people can actually use. If it's just if you're building plugins and all that kind of thing, they should have a licenses, like plugins and packages and all that kind of thing. However, like side projects and all that, I think that maybe is not a worry at that point of time. So yeah. Do they check GitHub repos or quality of work on GitHub? It depends on the company, depends on the time that this recruiters have, depends on like what is the role that they're recruiting you for. Like if they have the time, if they don't have the time, they're not going to check your GitHub repo at all. They're just going to screen through your resumes, because if they get like 50 resumes a day, they don't really have the time to check other things. Sometimes what I've seen is that once you have got already screened and you're already ready to like interview with your first first person in the company, that's when the interviewer might check your GitHub profile, just to have like a understanding of your work before the interview, just to know who you are, what you do, kind of thing. But probably not during the screening rounds much. Maybe they do not have a lot of time. If they have lesser resumes to screen, they can check. So and at that point of time, again, if you are applying for an internship, maybe they can let go of bad quality of code, or like quality of code that needs improvement, that they can like let go, because okay, this person needs learning anyway and we are going to be helping this person anyway. But if it's a senior role, then that person is going to see your quality of work, of course. So yeah, I'll get to the Kotlin thing in a way. I think there's so
Pooja,
many
I have one question.
Yes.
Like you said that people should do some UI challenging and they will find out that they are good into that and they can do career in that basically. So is there any way I have seen that many people who haven't the coding background, they still start learning Flutter and they are happily do the UI, they are interested in the UI side. So is there any way they can get a job in only for the UI kind of thing, because they don't have any coding background? So are they going to apply for such jobs to start with, and then eventually they can learn the basic things of the coding, or what you can suggest for them basically?
So this happened with a lot of people that we were mock interviewing in our community, that they were super good at UI, like amazing work. However, when we actually tested them on like the logic and just writing simple logic of on and off logic or something like that, there was a little bit of struggle in a way.
Yeah.
Now, if I feel like it in basically mobile development, UI cannot just stand alone on its own in a way. There is logic involved even in UI stuff. Like there is obviously like architectural decisions that we make in a mobile code base, but there is also decisions that we make in a UI file as well. So having that basic foundation of programming, because whatever it is still code. So I still feel like understanding the foundation is going to just help you grow in that career, because I feel like if it's just UI that you're doing, you may not be able to grow much. Maybe you might find a company that is just letting you do UI work, because I remember I did this as well. Like when I was in college, first year, second year, I just did UI for one of the companies and just build widgets or something like that. And there was somebody else who was handling the logic behind the scenes, the blocks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but that was, if I stuck to it, I would not always find companies who have that, capacity to only hire a person for just UI and then always contact another developer for filling up the logic for it. So I feel that's where the growth will be a little stagnant in a way, that because it's still a software engineering career, even if you're developing designs. Otherwise, why not design career? If you're just so focused on UI itself, why not move to a design career itself? If coding is not something you want to pursue, that's also an option, because some people do not like coding. They do not like coding. I'm not going to ask them to pursue it in a way. However, for growth, I think having that foundation I feel is important. Maybe in first year, second year, you can get away with it, but probably not in an early career role. And of course, never it will not go into a senior role at all.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So there was it. Of course, the next point is like when I talk about GitHub in a way, obviously knowing Git is also important, because I feel at this point, joining a company without the Git knowledge is going to slow you down, because everything starts with that, just forking, cloning a repository of the existing repositories that the company has, knowing how to push and commit and add stuff like that. It's a very, maybe it is intimidating for the new people. However, it is so important today that I don't think you can, you should learn it right in your first year if you are right there. And whenever you know about it, just learn it right away and start. Whenever you build a side project of yours, it has to all work with Git. Git should be enabled in a way. And of course, when you're uploading to GitHub, you will be using those commands as well. And of course, Git and GitHub is not the same if there is any people who think that it's the same thing, but understanding why it's not the same is also something that you will need to know. All right, so once you have figured out all of this, like you build designs and everything, as I said, having some logic is, important. And one of the things that people usually start with is that, building or integrating APIs. And with like some CRUD operations, which is like creating, reading, updating, and deleting. So there are many public APIs on GitHub. There is a repository. If I find the link, I'll send it in the Slack. Basically, you will find all the open APIs where you can try maybe like, okay, building a crypto app where you can, see all the current options in a way, and building funny dad jokes app, whatever it is, like try out whatever you feel like you want to try out. There are open APIs, all these data is available, and there are also authenticated APIs where you need API keys. Learning that is also important because that helps you understand that, okay, how to build an app where the APIs are not technically public. So and the basically I would say build something that you again want to use maybe. So definitely as an intern, these are the things that again showcase on your GitHub. It would be great. I see if there is any questions. I guess not. So now at this point, like you can start applying for internships, but if you do the following, you will be basically able to stand out, because these are, I think, the most basic things that you should do. You should have it in your profile. But if you do the following, you will stand out as an intern. So there is a comment, I guess. So I'm sorry, but the truth is that most companies don't want to deal with educating juniors and unlocking their potential. It depends on the companies, because if they have the time, they are actually happy to teach. I joined as an Android intern in one of the companies, and they made me learn Flutter on the job. And that is how I learned Flutter. That is my story of learning Flutter in life, because the company bet on me that like, okay, you take your time, take a month and do this, prototype project and learn Flutter on the job. We are happy to give you that time, even though there was a very early stage startup and they did not have much funds and revenue as such. So it depends on like your engineering team in a way. So now, yeah, talking about the things that you need to do to stand out. So the tip one, as a student, I think you should be having a lot of time, because you don't have to do adulting like we like professionals have to do with work and life and career and family and everything, or cooking and stuff like that. So basically you will have a lot of more time. And even if you have the most hardest curriculum in your college, you have time, I think. So participate in challenges and hackathons and events, technical events, and build as much as possible. It does not have to be, again, Flutter, I feel. It could be any other language and framework. It's just like you should, I feel like at that point, when you are in like your first, second, third year or something like that, you still have to figure out what you really love, right? Even if you know that you love coding, you still have to figure out if you do you like backend development, do you like front end web, or do you like mobile, or I don't know, IoT stuff like that. So try everything in your college time, because I think that's the best time to like experiment. And by the time you're at the third year end, you might have an idea, or fourth year, you might have an idea that, okay, I want to follow this because this gives me more happiness, I would say. So I think even in my case, I had tried IoT, I had tried backend development, I loved robotics so much for like 2 months that I wanted a career in it. However, that was for 2 months. And then I tried web development and I hated it. I hated it to the core because of CSS and HTML. So, but I also did app development at the same time. And that's where I realized that, listen, this is my happiness at this point. I have tried all of this. They did not sustain. This is where I want to want to continue doing. So for sure, that is where I started applying for app development internships. And then suddenly it became a career of mine. So yeah, how can you make up for not having a CS degree? I think at this point, for a lot of companies, degrees don't really matter unless it's like a little more MNC side kind of thing. It is basically like, if you're ready to invest in your own change of career, which is like, if you want to get into coding, you have to have your own personal projects to showcase something, like anything that they need to see that, yeah, you're good at it, right? So whatever you can do to showcase that you're good at it, which could be like projects or public apps that you have deployed as well, like talking about it in public, and anything, like a lot of things you can do basically to showcase that you're good at X development. And they will not really care about your degree in a way. I mean, I am from a CS degree. However, I had already a profile, a portfolio of apps. By the time I was third year, I had like some 6-7 apps that I was building, like random stuff that I was doing. And I could, tell that, hey, listen, I am not any software engineer. I need app development only. And these are the profile portfolios of apps that I've built. Do not hire me for any other Python development or backend development or anything, because I have apps that I've built and I only want to apply for that. So that, because a lot of times when you're in the fourth year, people hire you for every kind of development and software engineering, right? Because you also do not know at that point of time sometimes that what you exactly like. So I made sure that, hey, these are the things that I've worked on. These are my showcase of projects. So yeah, I do not want to consider any other category in software engineering. I only want to do app development in Android because I did not have a Mac. So so definitely that's where you can showcase a lot of things, and people will not care about your degree. They don't care. Like, if you can do the work, why would they care about what you studied? So yeah. Right. So as coming back to like the hackathons things, definitely, again, a lot of projects to showcase, and that helps your resume for sure. So now, again, the question will be like, what kind of projects? I think building side projects that you will use is a great way, because you become your user. You find your bugs every day when you're using it. You find the frustration when you're, this feature is so buggy, let me like go back and fix it in a way, right? So that way you will keep on improving your own project. Because if you're building something like flight booking app or something, you're not going to use your own app to book a flight. However, imagine like an expense management app or something like that, right? I in my college, I had a 75% attendance thing. So if you do not have 75% attendance, you are going to have a backlog, and you will have to like come back and redo semester or something like that, right? So for that, I build a attendance management app where every day I will go to class. I will basically, let input in the app what are the subject classes that I attended, so that it calculates and tells me that for this subject you have 60% attendance, and for that subject you have 75% attendance, and these are the number of classes that you must attend so that you can stay on the the barrier, right? So I was using it every day for like 2 semesters, and I found so many bugs, like, okay, the calculation is wrong, this is not right. So I went back and kept on fixing the bugs for my app in a way. I even like gave it to my friends. They used it or not, I don't care, but in a way I was using it for sure. And I that time I actually felt like the fun of building applications, of mobile applications in a way, because it's so intimate, the mobile apps in a way, which I would not get as a, I don't know, websites kind of a thing. So I really liked that. It had the worst UI in the world, but it worked. So that kind of things, build projects that you will use, because you will become your user, and you will basically keep on improving your own product, and that leads to becoming a product developer as well. So that helps. And yeah, of course, so you will basically also be participating in college club events, stuff like that, and they always need apps, websites, stuff like that, right? So participate in all those, and you involve yourself on all those, and you will be building involving yourself in actual apps that are used by users and not just you. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility that I might have got bad attendance. So tip number 2 is that go beyond CRUD operations and APIs and think of more complex features. Like it might be complex for you at that stage where, thinking about like, oh, how do I implement OAuth, or how do I do some logic involving time zones, or how do I build apps with forms, uploading and downloading files. These are like interest based, like, okay, I have this app, I need this particular feature, so let me figure out how to do it, right? That's a very good way to learn a language and framework, because I always, I do not know how to tell anyone that these are the A to Z to do in a language framework kind of a learning process. It's always like, hey, what do you want to do with this language or framework? Just learn the basics first, start building it, start implementing features, and then you will you will realize that, oh, you don't know X. So when you want to know X, you will start learning Y. And as like this will be an entire loop, and you will like fill up the gaps in your knowledge one by one. Because even today for Flutter, I do not know everything at all. Like I still feel like, oh, I do not know about some of the things, and I have to go back and learn it in a way. So it's a learning process every day. As an intern, junior, senior, EM, whatever it is, you learn every day. So keep on doing that. So right, and yeah, build features for fun, and they will end up becoming your part of your knowledge, because of course, like you are going to be learning something while you do something that you actually doing it for fun. So awesome. All right. Tip number 3. So if you did all that already, now you say that you have a lot of time, you can prepare yourself for an early career role. I basically, be even more awesome, and like start learning the things that early career person will need to know. And you will stand out 2x or 5x in a way, if you have the time and you have implemented all of this and you're very confident about the knowledge till now. So coming to the next one, which is the early career role. Now, can we see if there are any people who are, looking for, or basically they're just out of college. Early career means that you're out of college. You have maybe 1.5 years of experience in some like software development, or you are moving from one career line to another in a way. So that could also be early career for mobile development, because even if you have done 5 years of design, if you on the 6th year you started Flutter or mobile development, it's still an early career for mobile development. So that way, so yeah. Is there any questions on the live chat? I guess nothing, not a question. Okay. All right. So question is like, if you're already working in another sector and want to transit to tech, what advice for us? I think it's the same advice as the other person who asked about CS degree as well. Again, if you can do the work, why would they care where you come from as such? Like if you can showcase in a way, it will be harder for sure in a way, because like right now, if I look for an Android or Flutter job, I'm still in mobile development, right? It will not be so hard for me. If I'm looking for like a backend role suddenly, I have to showcase so much more. Like I have to I basically build 2x more projects on backend and talk about backend all the time. And it is going to be hard for sure. But I think the only few ways I can think of is showcasing, networking with people that are already in these backend roles and understanding what are the gaps that they need to learn to basically transition properly to by backend. I just am giving an example of another tech career, or basically what are the things that they need to learn from a person who's already there in that industry. And even be okay to doing internships or contract based work for these roles which you're not basically you've never done it before. So be okay to doing these smaller contract based work, that hey, I am okay to freelance for this new tech career or this new career line in a way, because I am still learning myself. And in that time you will bag some experience, and then maybe this will not even give you a lot of money as well, of course, because they are also betting on you. So it is you should be okay to lowering your career expectations in that first few jobs and gigs that you get, because for you it's also a learning thing and getting experience and making sure that you know exactly what you're getting into. So
Pooja, I have one question. For the early career role, people normally ask for the free internship or the voluntary work. What do you talk about? What is your point about this? Is it a good idea to do the voluntary work or the free internships and to build their portfolio?
So if I think it totally depends on the person who is actually moving career line in a way. If they are still in college, I think it's completely fine if you're doing internships for learning, what they say about exposure and all that, memes and everything. Because you need to know what is your if you're going to get any advantage out of it or not. Like if you are completely an expert in mobile development and then you're doing a free internship, that is basically it is taking advantage of you. Okay. However, if this is something that you want to figure out, if this is even a line that you want to try out, at that point of time expecting that you will be paid competitively for that role may be a higher too much of expectation. Like it's like you both the company and the candidate are betting on each other at this point of time. So it's okay at that point of time if you're doing a free internship or a volunteering work. But again, if you're in right now 3-4 years of experience, at that point of time you can't just have that one. Like if you do not have a main job and you have left your main job and you're just doing this volunteering experience and that is for free, you can't sustain, right? That time you can't sustain. But if you already have a job which is getting you paid, at that point of time, if you want to try out with a client, freelance for them or something like that, and try out this new career line, so that way you can transition gradually and while you're getting paid as well. And they may or may not pay you, kind of thing. It depends on their budget as well. So it depends on if you're okay with not getting paid for that point of time. And if you already have a job, then I think you should be okay with it, because again, betting on each other. So I feel it's situation based. But yeah, never do it free if you're really good at it, or if you're almost good at it, never do it for free. So that is even if you're an intern, even if you're in college and you have already showcased a lot of experience in it, you have done internships before, you are really good at in your class and you're better than other candidates, just because you're an intern, just don't just get some payment. Maybe it's not competitive, but have to have some payment. But if it's completely brand new, then I think you're okay to let go of it and actually learn for experience and like go for experience. I feel that.
Yes. Okay.
Where do you look for Flutter jobs is, I think I can answer this at the end in a way once you have finished all of it, and we can talk about like the different places that we look for Flutter jobs and how to look for Flutter jobs in a way. So I will pin on this and answer it at the end. So coming back to like, early career role, what are the things and topics and concepts that you must know? Let's see the first one. Of course, once now that you are maybe a year experience or just out of college kind of a thing, you have the time, or not the, I don't know the time or something, but at this point, the expectation is that you should have more intermediate knowledge of Dart concepts like mixins or extensions, stuff like that. Like, be very curious about those things as well. Like, early career could be like, the first 2 years, or like depends on the thing as well. But be curious. Like, it doesn't mean that right out of college you need to know all the intermediate concepts, but while on the job, even if you're transferring to another company and applying for another company while you're still early career, at that point of time, just having that intermediate knowledge of Dart concepts helps so much more. Like, because I feel like in a lot of interviews, they don't really ask UI questions, they ask more problem solving questions, and that is where you will showcase your Dart, the hold of your language on Dart. And so if you are not too comfortable with it, it might show up in your interview itself, like even if you're moving companies kind of thing. So even your public repositories, that public projects that you showcase, it should have little bit cleaner code or kind of thing, more readable in a way. It's like having everything in one file may not be very impressive to the like recruiters if they get to see your GitHub profile, right? So start applying those intermediate concepts in your public project as well, because that's what they're going to see, right? And knowing how to work with a data storage, which mostly people start with Firebase, right? So Firebase has become synonymous with Flutter apps. Like, I have not even seen Android apps being so synonymous with Firebase. Then Flutter and Firebase are like hand to hand holding together all the time, right? So it's like a person knowing Flutter will obviously have tried out Firebase as well. So if the expectation is like there, then obviously don't skip it. Know Firebase in a way. People start with Cloud Firestore, Firetom's real-time DB for like data storage in a way. And of course, yes, there is other solutions as well, like Superbase, Apparite, Amplifier. However, like if you want to start, if you can start with Firebase, and of course, like if you are curious, then definitely try other solutions as well. Like, this is about you knowing as much as possible and trying out, experimenting as much as possible. But like, it's just that I have seen that if you're applying for like startups in a way, I have seen a lot of startups work with Firebase first, right? Before, if they like, even if they don't have a backend team in a way, like they start with Firebase right away. So with that experience, it kind of helps you, translate your experience there and say like, I know Firebase, so I can help you with it. But yeah, with the other solutions that Damon, you mentioned, maybe not a lot of startups are like using all of it, like translating this. Like, of course you can learn it. However, it's so much easy to say that, hey, you are using Firebase, I have also learned it. This scenario happens so much more often than saying it for Superbase, Apparite and all that. I mean, of course they are like still popularly used, but I still feel it's not as popular as how Firebase is being used, especially for smaller startups and projects in a way. So and of course in mobile dev, very important is learning about caching in a way. Like, whatever side projects that you're building, implement like, like, okay, you're doing some authentication. You do not want like the user to like authenticate every time they open the app. So try add some caching there, caching for like images or like files or something like that. Try out different scenarios, be curious. Like, again, if it's a app that you're using every day, you will figure out the frustration of the using your own app, and then you will figure out like, okay, let me just cache this response for this particular feed, or suppose, and so that I don't have to constantly, do API calls every time I open the app, because you are your user and you will feel the frustration and you will want to reduce your own frustration. So that's where I always say that build something that you will use every day. Then comes this most famous question ever, which is, do I really need to learn native languages if I'm doing Flutter? So I would really want to know from the people in the chat that what do they think, that if that's a yes or no, like if you're learning Flutter, do you really need to learn native stuff? So I have a good question and a no and a yes. What about like, okay, in live chat, is there, okay, it's still maybe. All right, I was a little bit learning, does no harm for native, at some point you might need it depending from what you're trying to do. Some I was on it recently, used diamond. Yeah, I think that's what I feel as well, is that it definitely helps your case. Like, you are building on the native platforms technically. Like, it's not that you're completely out of Android platform and out of iOS platform or like web platform or whatever, right? There are times where you will have to like, touch the native code in a way, either like either some setups or like, or some maybe debugging a plugin, a camera plugin or Bluetooth plugin, and like, okay, why is this not working? Let me go back to the native code and see, is the plugin have a bug or something, and you go and fix it. Like, how would you fix it if you do not and like, know the native languages? I mean, I feel like after a point of time, like when you're like, I don't know, 3-4 years of experience, any language you are able to read, at least. Even if you're not able to write, maybe you're able to read in a way. Like, I do not know Swift, but I actually can read the the Swift code base and can understand exactly what is kind of happening there. But what really helps is that whenever there is any problem in Android side things, I'm always asked to like, fix the Android side of things, if not the iOS, because I'm not that good with iOS in a way. So I can, people can bet on me when there is any a problem in Android side, because there will be, right? Like, there might be platform channel things that you need to work on. There might be like plugins that you're obviously integrating. There might be setups that went wrong, like, okay, the the SDK things, or like libraries that you're integrating, or deep linking, push notifications, stuff like that. When you work on those, you will like, oh, okay, I will have to touch the native code. So that if you're too like, no, I will never learn the native languages, it might be a little like, I mean, I don't know, like, it might not sound like you're too open to the entire mobile development experience, because you don't need to become a Flutter developer, is what I always say. Yeah, that always aim to become a mobile developer and not just a Flutter developer, because Flutter does run on Android and iOS. So you need to know those kind of things. Now the question is, like, what language then? Like, should you learn Kotlin? Should you learn Swift? And I feel there are things, the points that I can think about here is that what I feel like you can learn any of it. Like, you don't have to learn both. Like, as I said, like, I'm good with Android, Kotlin kind of. I did more Java Android than Kotlin Android. So, but I'm kind of now understand Kotlin. However, Swift, I have never done an entire project in Swift ever. So it's okay that if you are starting to learn one of the platforms in a way, but if you learn both, of course, plus points and all that. Then comes that there are a lot of times, a lot of companies are actually having very heavy native involvement. Like the company that I first worked with, they had a lot of Bluetooth involvement, like heavy involvement of Bluetooth in a way. So that means that when you are using these native capabilities of platforms, even if you're building a Flutter app, you will be actually stumbling upon those stuff in a way. So I feel like it depends, like, okay, what is the market really looking for? If there are more if you're just starting out, and I can talk about, like, suppose the Indian market and the US market, right? In Indian market, Android apps are more prevalent in a way because there are more Android users in India. In US market, iOS is more prevalent because there are more number of iOS users. So you can either choose that, okay, if I want to apply for a Flutter role which requires an Android expertise and I'm in India, then of course I will get more options to apply for, right? However, like the same with iOS in like US. However, then the opposite also happens, is that when there is some companies in India looking for a Flutter role with iOS expertise, they don't get a lot of candidates. And there's also more pay for those roles because it's just so rare to get iOS expertise in India that they keep a higher compensation for those roles. So now the question that you might ask is that, should you go for like the more available jobs, or should you go for the more rare jobs where the more compensation is there and you know that you will stand out just because you know some a framework that has more compensation? Because, but then also there's a minus point, is that you may not get a lot of companies for like iOS in India. For Android you'll get a lot, but maybe the compensation will not be super competitive. So this is where you can decide what you want, right? Research your the market that you are applying for. Even for remote jobs as well, you still have to have some company have to have some country specification that, okay, I want to apply for US jobs, I want to apply for European jobs in Europe in a way. So you still have to study your market in a way that, okay, this is the platform that is more prevalent. I think if I learn this, I will have a little bit more standing out. Okay, so right. And I guess, yeah, that's probably the reasons for learning a native thing. Now, of course, like state management, of course, like that. If you are building a mobile app which have states, you will have to manage those states, and that is what state management is all about. However, it's also the most debated topic in this community. Like, it's crazy how much focus is given to state management, which is just good architecture. I feel it's just good architecturing of your app, that, okay, you're able to manage manage states well, but there is a new package coming up every month or day or something like that, and there's debates between X versus Y versus Z, and why you should not use X and why you should use Y and all the kind of thing. I think in this case you should really make your own decision, or your team's decision, once you have figured out all, or like there are obviously, like, there are top 3 solutions for state management right now, right? Like Block is one, Riverpod is one, some people use some other as well, like there are so many. I actually am forgetting names as well. So obviously there are stream based, there is notifier based, like state management techniques. There are so many different types of categories of state management that happens. I feel like if you're very curious and you want like to grow in your role, don't stick to like, no, this is my favorite package because I have used it everywhere, so this is what everyone should also use. Like, in a way, I feel like, do not get married to a state management technique, because what works for X product may not work for Y product. Because I feel like this is a decision of the team of what state management they should use, that, okay, this is what I can gain and lose from using this technique, and this is what I can gain and lose from using Y technique. So, discuss within your team in a way, what works, kind of thing. And if you have tried out, experimented with like 2-3 solutions, that is when you can actually, answer like, okay, why this works and why doesn't work. If you are married to one technology, one solution in a way, it might show a little bit of, I guess, arrogance in a way that, okay, no, I just I this is what everyone should use, and no, every other solution is just like, has these problems and that problems. Because what also works is that also in a way, people even say that, okay, no, I have heard that set state should not be used at all, right? So even if I'm just like updating a button color in a very one-page app, I am going to use block for it. Do not over-engineer your apps just because there is some fancy stuff happening and people are using it. Like, you need to know why one was like, why set state is not, somebody recommended that not to use set state. Like, you need to like have your own opinions about those solutions in a way, right? So even when you are applying for a new company, maybe you use Riverpod in your last company, but the next company is already using block pattern. That you can't just say, no, this is, I will not work for this company if they are using block. Like that again, if you want to have that barrier, for sure, yeah, it's your choice. However, that does not show well in that, you're an overall engineer who's open to solutions that work rather than solutions that are favorite to you. So what's my favorite state management? I do not have a favorite again, but I have used some and I really like using Riverpod. However, that is after I have used a lot of state management techniques, and then like, yeah, it's much more easier for me to use Riverpod, but again, open to other techniques to see if they are also like, there are a lot of state management techniques that I've not used yet as well. So I'm like thinking that maybe I'm missing out on some, but till now I have had fun with Riverpod, I would say. So tip number 4, when you're writing logic, try to do, basically this is what I was saying, that make your Dart skills stronger. Whenever you're actually building a logic in a feature, do not involve the UI yet, and start building the problem solvings in Dart in a way, and that will make your skills in Dart much more stronger, because you're forgetting the UI of it, and you're basically thinking of like, how can I actually solve this in just the language part of it. And this also helps in interviews, because as I said, like, a lot of interviews are just going to give you problems that you need to solve, and they will not be UI always. So just try to like do problem solving in just Dartpad or like in paper in a way, just to write classes, and how you would like separate the logic, and what will be the interrelationship between the classes and different classes in a way. That way you just learn a lot regarding Dart, and you improve there. Okay, that's repeated. Okay. Right. So now, as somebody said, like, there's so much more solutions like Superbase, AppWrite, and all that. You can also like go beyond NoSQL and Firebase in a way, learn about SQL, because that's something that we all, if you are coming from a CS degree, we all actually have learned. I think we have learned SQL in our curriculum in a way. So, have like local databases in your app. Again, since this is your own app, you can do anything that you want and learn to write queries, SQL commands. That just another knowledge to have, because it's also easier when you're talking to backend developers, because you understand SQL and they work with SQL so much more. It's so much more fuller knowledge, I feel. So definitely go beyond Firebase and learn about other solutions, because that helps you stand out for sure. And when we were talking about native, now the question is like just learning the basics of the language is obviously helpful so that you can read and just update code if you want to. However, when you get the time, I feel like, understanding like the platform concepts such as like app life cycles, like what is the Android life cycle and what is the iOS life cycle, and it is not the same as the widget life cycle, right? So Android and iOS ka own life cycles, how the OS handles permissions, and how is the memory and storage management, how the background tasks take place. You need to be curious about it, because again, no matter what, your Flutter app is running on these platforms, and understanding how these things work behind the scenes is so much going to help you grow in your career. If like and definitely if the kind of questions come in interviews, they will be so easy for you because you've implemented them properly. Tip 8 is this is where, like, understand the why. When something works, something does not work, something is discarded or not supported or is supported. As somebody said, like, understand why set state is recommended not to be used. Like, is it like, should this rule be applied to the entire app, or are there use cases where it's okay to use set state? Like, understand what is happening when you're doing set state in a way. Like, you can't just say because the community said that set state cannot be used, own opinion of it. So I feel like understanding why, when you apply some kind of a logic, or even when you're looking at Stack Overflow, our jobs are like dependent on Stack Overflow, right? So when you're using Stack Overflow, there are a lot of code that you will get right away. You just copy it probably. However, understand that, hey, why did this work and not the logic that I was trying to implement, right? It might take more time, but it was going to grow you so much more. And this is where these kind of questions come so much more in interviews. They will not tell you like, explain what is set state. They might tell you like, what's happening behind the scenes, like why in this case scenario, can I use it or can I not use it, or if I use it, what happens, kind of thing. So when you don't ask yourself these questions, you will not be able to answer those in interviews as well. So remember that good interviewers will not ask you definition based questions. They will not ask you, I hope they don't ask you like, what are the types of testing available in Flutter. I mean, sure, I can answer it, but I might like, forget like the types, or what are the types of XYZ available in this framework. I don't remember. I do not go and open the, the language website and just see, okay, today the types are this. When I use it, that's when I will realize, okay, these are the XYZ types. Like, good interviewers will ask you, why should we do this? How should we do this? If this happens, then what happens, kind of a thing. So very application based, right? So right, so ask the why, because that makes you a better software engineer. And yes, of course, don't blindly believe the community opinions without trying it out yourself. If today I tell you that GetX is the best package in the world, do not believe me without trying it yourself. And even if I say that GetX is the worst package in the world, do not believe me, because who am I like to tell you, right? I feel like even if the Flutter engineers go and tell you that this is X and that is X, try to still understand and read the documentation that, okay, why did this person say that this is good and not kind of thing. That curiosity is actually what makes you grow your career. So I think that's how you as an early career is going to go heights if you're curious. Okay, so do we have any other question before we move to the mid-senior things? Anything related to the junior roles and early career roles? I guess not. I think I've answered them in line anyway. So coming to now that you are So coming to now that you are probably going to be applying or becoming a mid or a senior engineer, and for a Flutter, for a Flutter role in a way, I think you will realize when I actually talk about these points is that probably for a Flutter role, Flutter is the last thing that sometimes is the focus in a way. So let me just go through it in a way. So basically, for sure, I think the first thing that a senior is expected to know is if they understand architectural patterns in a way. And state management is not exactly equal to architecture patterns. It is like state management might force you to build in a certain architecture in a way. So when you're building a block based state management, it might force you to have a certain architecture in a way. However, they're not always equal. There are a lot of things in architecture in an app that you have to think about. That it could be again, as a relationship between the UI, the data, how you basically architect the folder structure in a way, basically how does the UI interact with the network layer, layers in a way. Then there's database layer, the network layer. All this is basically building the architecture of the app in a way, and it should be easy enough to build newer features on it. So it should be scalable in a way, right? Like once you build an architecture, if tomorrow the business changes a little bit, you do not have to write the architecture of the app from scratch, because you built it in a way that you've thought of all these kind of points. It should of course be readable, and the way you write your business logic, it should be testable in a way as well. So I think these are the things that people will expect you to know as a senior engineer, because you will be probably part of discussions. As a senior engineer, you will be like, hey, what do you think? Should we go with maybe should clean architecture be a good choice, or MVVM or something like that, whatever it is. Again, this, just like state management, I think this is also like a team-based decision, depending on the app that you're building. For some cases, clean architecture works best. In some cases, like something else works best. So I think it depends on what product you're building and what is the future plan as well. So you will be expected to give opinions, right? And I think this comes from experience, and this does not come from dummy projects or anything. But once you've worked in a lot of projects or companies and all that, you learn number of good best practices in a way. So this is something that comes from experience, and not always if you read an article you will learn good practices or something like that. It comes from application for sure. So as a senior engineer, that is what is expected from you. Okay, and then comes, of course, that you will be expected to implement more design patterns and principles. If you have ever written a singleton class, that is a design pattern. There are other things like the factory, the builder, observer, etc. Knowing this is basically helps you solve common object-oriented problems in a way. So these things kind of are expected that you are going to be writing, thinking of these in mind. And of course there are design principles in a way, which is like the solid principles, the dry or the KISS principle, which is helps you write better code or better object oriented code in a way. These are the things that will be expected from you, that hey, maybe from a junior and intern we will not really feel like okay, they need to write such readable cleaner code. But from a senior, it's for sure of course you are going to be probably mentoring other people. So you need to think about how scalable your code is, how maintainable your code is. It should not be 6 months down the line you have to rewrite your entire code base again. So learn on those, because if you can showcase that in your interviews, it will be so much great standing out. Then of course testing. I think we had a session last week around testing itself, right? So I guess of course testing is something that every application should think about. That's where I said architect your app in a way that the business logic is at least testable. I feel like more than widget testing, unit testing is something that should have more focus, and that's what my opinion is, because business logic is something that can, you know, make or break a lot of user experiences in a way which, you know, okay, you are doing a calculation for like this shopping app, like, okay, all these items are there in this shopping cart and you're doing the calculation for the final price. You need to unit test that particular piece of logic, you know, I feel. But okay, maybe the UI broke or something like that. That is obviously going to be a bad experience for the user. However, if the price is, you know, wrongly calculated, I think that's going to be even worse for the user, right? Even though a lot of things, you know, all these kind of logic might be happening on backend or something. However, there are a lot of things that happen on the app as well. Like we do a lot of work as well, right? So for sure, there's a lot of business logic that needs to, that app specific business logic that needs to be tested. And the funny thing is that there are a lot of interviewers who will love it if you know testing, even if they do not use it in their companies. They are just like, yeah, we are hoping to build, you know, implement testing in our code base. So if you know it, you can come and like, you know, start that ship initiative and all that kind of thing. And but if you do not know testing, they might like, let's like, you know, let's think about it kind of thing. So it is a plus point, and it's very funny that a lot of companies still do not prioritize it. I think mostly startups in a way, because they are like, you know, scrunch on time as well. So for sure, this is going to be a great plus point for you. And it's okay if the companies do not use it, but you go ahead and like, you know, start the initiative. So for sure, like now comes like, you know, of course, knowing how to set up CI/CD. Basically, I think for Flutter, code magic is also synonymous in a way, but there are other things like GitHub Actions and other stuff as well, Circle CI. So I think you will be, as a senior engineer in the team, if it's a small team, you might be expected to set up these stuff, or you might be expected to like troubleshoot when there are any kind of you know, build issues happening. We will probably not be going to the intern for it, right? It's something of the senior engineer is what is expected to know. So you will, if you're the first engineer, you will be setting up all these kind of things. So knowing CI/CD is definitely, I think, plus or like a must, I feel. And of course, you will also be the person who will be doing the deployments as well, possibly. So knowing, I mean, I don't know if how you can show it in the interviews, but I think having some apps that you've already deployed in Play Store and App Store shows that you know, you understand the workflow of deployment. So again, in startups, maybe you will be the person who will be deploying the apps as well. So I think understanding the entire workflow, you know, what is like the production cycle, or what is the internal testing cycles and something like that, stuff like that. You know, iOS has their own stuff, you know, workflow in a way, and knowing those kind of things is definitely going to be very helpful. And they can count on you. Like imagine if they do not have a senior engineer in their team yet, they can count on you, like, okay, you are the person who can do all this type of thing. So for sure that helps. Then comes, I think I feel like this is so much important, but you can't really show it in interviews as such. However, as a senior engineer, you have to be open to mentoring other folks, either through code reviews or like one-on-ones or group calls. Like sometimes, like, you know, in our company, we sometimes like, okay, I learned about X and I'm going to have a call with all my mobile folks, and like, you know, we will all talk about X in a way. Or sometimes either through the code reviews, we like, you know, hey, you know, you can actually try out in this approach rather than that approach. So you should be open to doing that in a way, like not just like, nay, I mean, it's not my problem, it is your problem. Like I feel like if you're going to grow in your career to maybe an engineering manager or a principal engineer, you will have to have mentoring at for sure. Like as I said, like once you're in that particular role, you're preparing for the next role already, right? Like all those tips are like preparing for the next role. So mentoring is something that you should do as a senior engineer, because you have the experience, you have gained some best practices and stuff like that. And I feel you should be completely open to telling the juniors about it. They are not going to take your job away. So for sure you should be open to, like, so that you can grow into the next role. Like you should be happy delegating the task in a way that, okay, I trust you, and even if you're not in the lead position, you should be able to delegate it in a way that this, you have not done a bigger project before. Why don't you take the lead, even if you're SD1 or SD2, something like that. Like just take the lead in a way so that they will do the mistakes, but you're there to fix it, right? So that way you also grow, so that you can grow to a higher role, just so that's because you have prepared the juniors as well. So that it's just like helping everyone out in a way so that you can also grow, right? So and of course, how I love mentoring is outside in this community, like how I do in this call and other conferences, talks and videos. I just like love talking about like teaching people about concepts and stuff that I learned. Like, because when I teach someone, and somebody actually said, like, when the best way to learn is to teach someone. I have feel like when I'm teaching someone something, I realize that maybe I did not understand X, so I should go back and fix that gap in my knowledge. Or sometimes like I realized that, okay, I have understood the concept very well because I'm able to explain to someone who had no idea about this concept. So that is my validation for me. So I think the best way I grew is because I kept on teaching people for all these 3-4 years now. So yeah, I think I feel like there's this one thing that I have done a lot in the early community days, in a way, is that I used to write a lot. And whenever I used to write, I might have published only like maybe 10-11 articles, but in my drafts, I have probably 20-25 articles in my drafts, because I start writing them. And then I realized, maybe I can't explain this. So I should go back. I actually go back and learn that again. By the time I do not go back to the draft and write it, but at least I realize that, okay, no, this is not something that I can teach yet, because I do not understand it completely. Because when I start writing it, I'm like, I can't. I am not able to explain this well, and I am not able to understand what I'm writing. So that's where my drafts help me learn stuff as well. So yeah, Medium articles a lot. So you can check out in Pooja Bhaumik Medium. There are stuff which is published and stuff which is not. Okay, so coming back to the tip 9, it is like I think in a way, once you've grown into that role, you will learn so much from case studies of other engineering teams, of how they do things, and talking to other engineering teams and other EMs in a way that, hey, how you can approach this particular thing. So like I love conferences also in a way where there are case study talks in a way, because suppose like I've just went to this one conference where somebody talked about, like, having server driven UI, and we do have server driven UI in our company. So it's like I had questions that, okay, how did you approach this problem, how did you approach that problem? Because that way we can learn from each other. Nobody's going to hide information as such. Good communities don't usually do that. So for sure, I think like learning from other engineering teams is something that I think should be part of your job as well. So and you can showcase, or when you have knowledge, because you can only work in, like, I don't know, 3-4 companies at most at a certain career level, right? But when you learn from these all case studies, you gain knowledge of so many more companies, and that shows up in your interviews as well, because maybe the interview questions may not be related to what you have already worked with. So these things help you grow your mind in a way. So, and yes, thank you, Damon, for loving my talk in Flutter Vikings. Okay, this is a repeat. And So I actually I posted something on Twitter and Instagram like 3-4 days back, asking people that, hey, what are the things that has helped you get your current Flutter role? And so many people have answered it as that their contributions in open source was the one that actually helped them get the current Flutter role. And technically, yeah, that actually is it's something that in my case I did not, because I had like open work, or I was like teaching people and mentoring people, and that is what got me my Flutter jobs. But there are people who do not like teaching as such. They like to like get into the code, and they like to like solve problems and all that. And that's where open source is such a great place, because and then you might ask like, what open source projects? There's so many, like every plugin and package that you're using is completely open source, right? So like Flutterfire or all the official packages are all that, all these have issues open in a way. You can go ahead and fix the problems that you are either facing, or you feel that you can actually solve them. So I think doing open source work through these plugins and packages that everyone uses, I think is a more easier way to get started. There are of course open source products as well, which I think you will have to find which are open source, and then go into the issues and see if you can fix them. But whenever somebody asks like how to start open source for Flutter, I think these plugins and packages is where I always tell them to like get right ahead, because these are being used, and like especially the Flutter favorite ones, these are being used by so many folks. There are problems for sure that you can go ahead and fix them. So I feel like it's the first and best way to get started, but there are obviously so many other projects as well. And you can also showcase that in your resume, the profile, your GitHub already will have these stuff probably. So your portfolio, whatever, and you can say that you have worked on these particular plugins and packages. They are very, like, it kind of says that, okay, you had a PR merged into this particular package that 1,000 people, 1,000 plus or 10,000 people are using. Of course you must be good, right? So that kind of thing comes into the the hiring panels, that okay, they have some work that actually was validated by other people, and it got merged and it's being used by real developers. I'm pretty sure they have something to offer on the table. So I think open source is a great way to showcase that. If you want to have a great portfolio, if building UI challenges is not your thing, right? Like not everyone's thing is building UI challenges or building side projects. Open source is another way to do it. Yes, the Plus community packages, of course. There's so many packages in the Plus community as well, and they are being used by so many developers in their own projects, and it's a very, very, very active community as well. And I guess October is over, so the Hacktoberfest is also over, but I think they had something open for that as well. But yeah, it doesn't matter if it's October or not, like keep on contributing, because like I also feel like open source maintainers and are like so selfless in a way that they are doing it for the community, and they're actually building something without getting any kind of payment, by the way, right? I mean, I just, in Flutter Vikings, I had a talk with Remy about Report, and he's like, maintaining that like the project almost by himself. And I feel like you are literally the building block of this state management solution, and if you by chance step away, the entire community is going to go down, type of thing. Because if and that is why he needs more people to contribute in a way, not more people to help him in a way, because he can't always be the only person, right? And he is doing some excellent work in that Report project. So I will never want that this ever because of time crunch that he's not able to contribute or work towards it. That's why the community has to step up. And if you are good at Flutter, just go ahead and help people who are maintaining these amazing packages. So for sure, open source is an excellent way. And yeah, I guess that was mostly the things that I had in mind regarding these 3 roles. I guess I do not know. I mean, if you have any questions regarding something that I did not mention, I guess, yeah, the one question was that how do we get Flutter jobs? It's for sure, I think it's the same like for any kind of other Android jobs, iOS jobs. How would you get Android jobs, iOS jobs, right? For sure, LinkedIn is definitely one. I see so many openings, people talk about posts and all the kind of thing. And basically LinkedIn jobs also have a lot of postings nowadays. I wouldn't say like in 2019 there were any any kind of jobs available that time, but at this point there are so many companies that are working with Flutter, so they have these openings in a way. There are websites like as Simon mentioned about flutterjobs.com.info. Is it the same website? I don't know. So
different websites.
Okay. So yeah, there are different websites. Then a lot of, I think Flutter community has a Slack channel as well, and there are a lot of openings. Even I think I see like a lot of channels which people are posting openings about it. I guess if I even like talk about standing out, it also kind of means that people actually get to approach you, right? You do not have to apply yourself, type of thing. If when you stand out, people will approach you yourself. Like for Flutter jobs, I never had to apply to a job. I interviewed with all of them, of course, however, never had to apply that, okay, hey, listen, like I am like basically sending my resume in a way, kind of thing, because there was already an open work that people saw, and when they searched Flutter, some of the few names that came up, it kind of felt like, okay, let me try this person, they reach out themselves. So in LinkedIn, I have got a lot of reach out from recruiters as well. So that way standing out helped in a way, right? Because you need to have a little bit of public profile. That helps always. Like I think having that public profile where your work is already showcased is so much beneficial for sure than being a secret engineer. Like teaching, mentoring, open source work, having open source side projects, building a great plugin packages, or building your own app that you have deployed to people and people are using it. These are a lot of ways where you can actually have a little bit more public profile. And as soon as you say that you're looking for jobs, people will be like, oh, okay, we will have to try this candidate out. So I think that really helps in a way. But Twitter, LinkedIn, I see a lot of openings. There are a lot of websites as well. So it's how to really get jobs, I think, is the same as any other category of software engineering. However, how to stand out was all what I told, so that you get approached by people instead.
So Pooja, I have one question. Oh, okay.
I have a few questions again. Yeah. So maybe Renika, you can go ahead and then I can bundle them together.
Yeah. I have one question that startups or MNC, what should we do? Like, what should we choose?
It depends on what you want. I feel like for me, I wanted startups early on in my career because I wanted to work. I wanted to be involved in the product, right? Like be very closely involved in the product, where in an MNC you might not be very closely involved. One more thing is that Flutter was not available for MNCs, like, not available as in like Flutter jobs was not available in like MNCs at that point of time when I started my career, which is 2019. So like at this point, there are some, bigger companies that have Flutter roles. Now it depends like what is important to you. Do you like the clarity of things, the structure of things? Do you like to build for companies that actually have like a million, more than million, like 10 million users already? Or do you want to work for startups where you will be part of building those user base, and you might have I don't know, 500 users on your first release, and if that's okay with you because you are being part of the entire process of making that product big. It depends what you exactly like. A lot of people have seen that they have come out of startups and went to like bigger MNCs, or like at least bigger structured companies in a way, because they liked that structure. They liked having, not hustling every day. It's okay. It's in your time of your career. If you do not want to hustle every day, and you do not, or you really actually want that work-life balance, even though some startups do try to have work-life balance, like my startup actually does have work-life balance in a way, but there are release days where we do like, hustle in a way. But it depends what do you want. Do you want hustle? Do you want structure? So I think that way you can choose which companies or startups or MNCs.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. I think I had one on the back of that, but before that, wow, 1 hour, 40 minutes. There's a lot you could talk about. And then what it is you touched on a very stressful topic here, which is, jobs and careers, and how do you crack it with such a light smile. And I think you smoothen the whole topic into, like what you could do and how you can get in the job market. But again, the question is on back of Renuka. So CS degree and what we do, especially around MNC or getting into a bigger job, how do you think it is comparable? Like, because I think they look for, just a resume. They don't know the people. Yeah, and within our space also, within the dev camp space, we now have almost each one of you are competitors of each other. Yeah, so you're competing with each other. So do you still think CS degree is one thing that you need to get also, so that you can be ahead of others?
Yeah, okay. First, about the 1 hour 40 minutes thing, I have to say that I finished these slides maybe 1 hour back. I was like, okay, I have to basically, I knew that, okay, it's 3 p.m. starting here. So I'll wake up in the morning and I'll finish all the slides in a way. I did not think that it was going to go for like 1 hour, 40 minutes. I thought like, it's going to be like a 30-minute talk and then it's going to be a Q&A. But yeah, gladly. So coming back to your question, in a way that, okay, we all are basically competitors to each other, and does CS degree actually help stand out or help in the competition in a way? I do not think at all. I feel like I do not know even if, okay, so in our community, we have people, right, like in the GD community as well. There are so many Flutter GDs as well. I have no idea what they studied. I have no freaking idea what they studied. Like if they studied computer science, if they studied design, if they studied MBA, I have no idea. And I do not want to know. Simon, is that a raise or you agree with it?
I was going to raise my hand just because I never studied computer science.
Yeah, right. And you are amazing, right? You're amazing at what you do. I would have never thought that you were
well practiced. No, I think that the key here is I can only tell from my experience of hiring as well, is that you hire someone based on, are they the right fit for the job, right? And that's what you learn during an interview most of the time, because again, it's like, even if someone's done, let's say they've been in 5 different companies, what does it matter what they'd studied in computer science?
5 years back.
Because I want to know what they did last and what they've done over the past 5 jobs that they've had, or the 5 years, or whatever it might be, the experience. So I think experience has a huge, it's mainly this industry, right? Like, because a lot of people are self-taught, because it's very people get a personal interest in the topic. I think, yeah, understanding the skill level of the person that you're interviewing, and you're hiring them based on that, that's what I'd say is most important. But that's not to detract from the fact that you may not have skill at the beginning, because everyone needs to start somewhere, right? And I think someone mentioned this before about I've spoken to several people about this, but it's like, at the moment, like certain companies, like a big corporation, will hire juniors, right? Because they can skill them up They might hire them as an employee. They're hiring them as employees, meaning that they want to skill them up. They're an asset to the company, right? So there's a complete open job market there for juniors in doing Flutter and Dart. Whereas maybe the startups and so on, they're looking for people that have skill that can speed things forward for their company. In which case, they can't skill you up so they want to know, do you have the skill at the beginning? And it all depends on the role and lots of other things. It's like, let's say a company's having problems specifically with databases, and I mentioned earlier on one of the databases of Flutter ISAR. Let's say you've become an expert in ISAR, right? And you've put down your CV, you've got lots of repos explaining it, that's your specialist subject, right? Then you might get hired because you know that, and to sort someone's company problem out with that database solution, like there's so many options available. But I think like the key here is to learn, right? Is to learn and keep learning. You never stop learning.
Yeah.
Like the other day,
lifelong learning.
Yeah,
I think
and always be keen, always be keen and tinker all the time.
I mean,
Sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. So, and then you did the Flutter hiring network. So, do you guys have now a list of questions and answers? Like just the Flutter interview, 101 Flutter interview questions or something like that.
No, we don't I do not believe in those Q&As in a way, because again, it can't be like a definition based. Good interviewers will not ask you definition based questions in a way. Of course, there are topics that we recommend people in the community that, these are the topics, if it helps, kind of thing. I think, but in the mock interviews, we just say that, okay, can you explain the code in your side project that you built, or like we ask them to do an assignment in a way, and can you explain this code? If you had to change the feature a little bit, how would you do it? And we see their thought process there. So I think good interviewers should always focus on the thought process, because as Simon said, like, I think all these topics and all these kind of things can be learned even later. It does not matter exactly if you're done CS degree or not, but it's exactly how, if you can do the work that you're if you're applying for. So your thought process is really like, how you approach things and how you approach problems and kind of thing. Those are the kind of questions that we ask in our mock interviews as well. And whenever we see a company, because we talk to companies as well, when we see a company that has a little bit of flawed interview process where they ask these kind of questions, we try to, basically mentor them in a way that, this is not really helping you find X people in a way.
Yeah,
so
good tip actually. Yeah, that makes more sense, because you're trying to understand the thought process behind how someone is approaching that. I'm gonna do, because I will be rushing out, I'm gonna do two requests. One is I would definitely be interested to see the attendance app UI. Yes, if you can find that and post it on Twitter. How was it looking when
Which
you
app?
did the attendance app? The one.
Attendance.
No. I mean, it must be on my GitHub somewhere, like in 2017, I think I built it. So I have to scroll a lot probably. I'm sure it must be there on my GitHub. Oh God. I mean, are you going to like scrutinize my code quality?
And then the last one in my thing was basically, it's kind of a very weird space, and some of the companies have stopped it now, where the levels, or how would you do junior, mid, senior kind of thing? Is it age, experience, those concepts, those checklists, like you need to be there so that I can. So I was a CTO, and then sometimes you get these people who are progressing their career, saying, what, now I know solid, I know, can I become a senior? Like, are there qualifiers for pay / seniority, or how would you quantify this?
Yeah, I think the things that I mentioned here in this talk, I divided into this intern thing as well, intern, senior, junior thing as well, right? So I think that, like, the knowledge, I feel like knowledge and concepts and stuff like that is a better judgment of like seniority than the age or the career level in a way. like I have an interesting interesting story there, because when I graduated from college, I got a senior role right away. So I I mean, I even had to like tell that person who hired me, like my manager, in a way, like, are you serious? Are you mad? Like, have you lost it or something? Why are you
He
hiring
may
me?
be watching this live, yeah. So just be careful.
I told this person many times later in life as well, that I thought that you were really like taking a risk by hiring me as a senior, and I was very scared as well, that because okay, there's a lot of expectation, but what he said is that you showed these kind of skills, and this is what we needed, because we were at that point of time in this company, we were migrating native applications to Flutter, and I was the first Flutter hire, and they thought that I could basically lead the entire process of migration in a way. So this person saw that skill and saw that potential in a way, and that's why they gave the senior role, because of the skills rather than my age, because by my age I should not have been a senior at all. So for sure, like I feel like the potential and skills that we possess can decide your seniority, except for intern, of course, because internship is directed like, okay, you are a student, so you obviously, it will be an internship. However, it's possible that even if you join like a junior role right away from college, maybe if you show that skills, maybe in 6 months you could actually like level up, or like you can become a senior, you can be SD2, SD3, whatever it is. It just I feel like good teams with good having those criterias of leveling up, they really need this is where people can actually have these seniority roles without this age barrier. But maybe not for like MNCs or something, I feel like, because I've seen like in MNCs, years of experience is what decides your current seniority role or your level of software engineering, whatever it is. So like if I go to Google today, I will be treated by my years of experience and not by my Flutter experience at all, not at all. So I think it depends on the company to company and what is their rules around leveling up. I think it's more flexible in startups and leveling up, but not so easy in big tech in a way. So that's what I think.
I think thanks for answering those. Yeah, just a few questions in the chat, not exactly on your topic, as people were asking. So for us, I think DevCamp has taken its own life. Yeah, so what we had planned and then what it has become, it has taken its own life. So we kind of are trying to juggle around the assignments, what's coming next, and I think we have few specialized sessions from other experts. So what we will be doing is we'll be sending out like a form again to for your assignment submission, and then we are planning some, I think, either one-day session a week now, so kind of trying to smoothen it out. It was too much for us also when we are planning. Yeah, so just those questions, and then what we will also look for is to basically compile the videos that we recorded and publish that on YouTube. Yeah, so there's all the content, we'll put it out. Yeah, so that was a question in the chat. Okay, that's all from me today, but any other questions?
I was going to say what we can do. We're going to stop thank you for joining us on the YouTube stream. We're going to stop the live stream here. However, everyone stick around in the Zoom chat, because we'll do some live coding and there's no more questions for Pooja. Then we can continue on with for a little bit longer. Yeah. Any questions? Ask them now before we start the live stream.
So I have a question, Pooja, about the job pay. Like what people sometimes I see that the people are switching the job depending on the salary, basically. So what is your approach? Like do they go with the salaries, or do they go with the learning experience, or the role they want, something like that? What do you think about this?
I think again, it depends on what you want from your career at that point of time. Like for some people, if they're not in the right compensation bracket, they will be moving out jobs till they reach that compensation bracket, because some, people have money goals, right? So it is at that, like, for some people, they have to like really support their families and everything, and learning and experience can't just be their priority in a way, because there are responsibilities that they have. So if for them, moving jobs is to basically up their compensation, is something that they need, then they need it. But for some people who have really, like, they are happy with the compensation bracket that they have, but they're not happy with the work in a way, and they know that I mean, technically it's obviously obvious, right now, that people are going to just, like, have increments and not decrements as such, or maybe sometimes they do have a decrement as well, but it won't be like, a 50% drop if they move companies, right? They will never go with that, right? So when you are happy with your compensation bracket in a way, then at that point of time you realize that, okay, I'm not really learning in my job, and this is where I feel like, I'm somehow wasting my time, and maybe I have earned money at this point of time, and I really want to like see um you know growing myself actually, because I heard like basically what people, there's like one saying that they say, right, that sometimes 5 years of experience does not mean, like, for some people 5 years of experience means that their 1 year of experience is repeated 5 times, and you do not want to be that person, right? So you really, when you say that you have 5 years experience, you should really show that you're coming from that kind of growth. So it depends, like, if you're not happy with your job money, then I think figuring that out actually sometimes is very prioritized at that point of time. However, I still feel like even if you're not in your right, like you're getting paid less, you still need to work on yourself outside of your job so that you can get paid more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can't just keep on waiting for the next job to happen to get paid more. You need to work towards it only, and only then this will happen, right?
Yeah.
So like actually work extra hours. I mean, because this is that career that you want. This is the time that you have. This will not always be possible 10 years down the line when you have a family to support or something like that. If you're in the early career, you have to give extra hours to actually build or the career that you really want, because you're not in it right now. So once you actually figure out that now I have got the skills, you apply for the higher paid jobs. And if possible, if you're okay with the compensation also, and then you can move to a job that you actually get to learn as well, because not all good paid jobs you get to learn. So always.
So basically what happened, like I have seen that like new beginners and interns applying for many places for the internship, and then they juggling, oh no, I'm getting the really good money on that company, not here. And how they choose like a company, like I said, sometimes you have to get to understand that how much you learn like in early stage, basically.
Yeah. Even like when I was doing internships or applying for internships, I always had like an option, like, okay, a very early startup or a established startup where the work is going to be decided from the day one. And in the startup, they don't even know what work they're going to give it to me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna, at this point, again, for me at that point of time, I did not have a financial problem. I did not have to like think about like, how I'm going to survive my finances at that point of time. So I chose the one that was the early stage startup in a way, because I knew that I was going to learn a lot. Okay. So in that case, I was able to like, choose. However, if there are people who need to manage their finances, even in a professional job, not just an internship, it's a hard decision for sure. Like I feel like if your job does not give you that learning, you need to squeeze it out of your day somehow. Like you need to figure out to squeeze it out of your day somehow, because you make your own career, not your job. I feel like your company does not define you. So it's okay if they do not, yeah, they are paying for your rent and everything. However, if they don't give you the learning growth, you need to figure out somehow, work on Saturdays and Sundays as well. But you can't like let those time go and like wait for something to come to you.
Yeah.
Because again, it depends on the financial decision as well. I did not have it at that point in time. I do come from a middle class family, but I did not have that big financial problem that okay, I need to figure out how I'm going to pay my rent next month kind of a thing. So I could choose the learning path. And of course, I was also learning outside of my internship on weekends, extra stuff. And that is how I started writing articles when I was interning, because now my company did not tell me to do it. So you have to squeeze out time to figure out your make the career that you want, like work towards your career that you want.
This is a really great tips, I think, for all the like new beginners who want to come into this like a job market. They should start early, learn and apply for the jobs and learn outside the jobs as well. Like it's a good tip. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Even if it's not early career, even if you have like, already done 6-7 years of experience and you realize that you have not grown anything out of that 6-7 years, still that applies to them as well, that there is never a bad time to start working towards the career that you want. So go for it. It's just going to take away some of your free time, but I'm sure it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pooja, for giving all the tips and all the process how to become a standout from the job market. Thank you so much.
For inviting.
Feel free to stick around. I'm going to stop the live stream now. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. And we're going to be doing some more live streams, so make sure you subscribe.